On the syllabus, it says that the final is required. It counts twice, and I drop the lowest grade. I have been thinking about that, and I was thinking that what we might do instead, thank you, Naomi. What we might do instead is make the final optional, and all of the test grades will count. If you want to take the final, then I will drop the lowest grade, whether it's one of the test grades or the final. But if you're satisfied with your average after the next two tests, then you wouldn't need to take the final. How does that sound as a plan for everybody? I feel like I need to run this by you and not just say it's going to happen, because again, it's differing from the rules that were spelt out in the syllabus at the beginning of the semester. Did you guys want to make the final optional, and if you take it, then we'll drop the lowest grade? Otherwise, all of the grades count. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition,
Yes.
went through and like plugged in zeros for missing things over the weekend. I did not set it. What I will set it at the end of the semester is I will set Blackboard to drop the lowest grades. One in each category. There is a bunch of extra grades in there because for each test, there are 2 grades. One is your test and one is submitting the work. And that grade that was just making sure you turned in your work, I ended up, as long as people gave me their work, they got full credit out of it. And it's right now counting equally with your homework. Do you want me to keep it that way? Or should we just, delete those submission grades and just count the test grades?
Keep it that way.
Okay. All right. And I heard one voice. If I'm not hearing other voices, can I assume that you're in agreement? I had kind of left it that way, thinking that that would kind of, as long as you submitted your work grade, be a slightly higher homework grade in there. There were a couple of people who did a couple of extra activities. Those are not counted in as your average yet, but they will count in as extra credit. I just have to go ahead and, do those settings. So then if there are no other questions on that, I'm going to share my screen. And I think on Wednesday, we had said that homework, instead of being due today, will be due this coming Wednesday, the 21st. That will be the end of chapter 13. And so I'd like to have the test on chapter 13 available from class time Wednesday to the end of the day Saturday. Will that work for everybody if I have it to do by 11:59 p.m. on Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
So that test is in there. And again, this semester, I don't know if you noticed or not, all of your test questions, I've actually pulled from a test bank that goes with the textbook. And I haven't been writing my own questions. Also, that final exam will be made up of questions from that same test bank. They will mostly be questions that have been on tests already. I don't want to start chapter 14 today because I've kind of sort of ish promised at the end of each chapter that we would have a day of just answering questions, either tying up loose ends either on the homework or the activities. So I guess I'm wondering, is there anything from chapter 13 that any of you folks would like to look at, either homework wise or activity wise?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Wow. I'm impressed. How about everybody else? Do you have
I'm going
any?
over it with the tutor, so I'm all set.
Okay, all right, all right. Does anybody have any questions on anything homework-wise or activity-wise?
Could we go over number 10 on page 679, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So page, and I think I figured out a better way of going over the homework. Let's see if it works. Page 679. Question number 10. Says, I'm going to see if I can actually go down here and paste it into the notes. Yep. Is that big enough for you to read? And hopefully the writing will turn out better a little bit better this way. So
Yeah,
it says,
that's big enough.
okay, a pie chart showing the U.S. government resources of revenue for fiscal year 1991 is given in the 1992 IRS form instruction booklet. So we've got this picture here. What are the angular sectors for the portion of personal income taxes? Well, if I look at personal income taxes is 35%. So that would have to be 35% of my circle. And so this angle, wouldn't it have to be 35% of that full circle, or 360 degrees? And so again, like you learned in Math 108, to find a percent of a number, we can change that percent into a decimal and multiply it by 360. Are you all right if I stop there and don't do the computation?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, and so then borrowing to cover the deficit, borrowing is 21%. So again, that would be 21% of my full circle, or 360 degrees. And we take the 0.21 and multiply it by the 360. Now, the part that people usually don't do well with on this homework is, believe it or not, this last part. This last part asks, what do you see, what do you think the comparisons are between 1991 and 2011? See figure 3.10. Well, in order to do that, we've got to find that figure 13.10. And so I'm going to go back to my virtual textbook, and I am going to, I forget how far I have to scroll to do this, but I'm going to turn the pages. And it probably would be quicker to do this in your actual physical textbook. So here is, you see how it says figure 13.10. And so this is that other diagram that they want me to compare it to. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that one. And paste that into the notes too. Let's see if I can get these so that they're relatively close to each other. So now when I compare the two, what's it look like? What do you folks notice comparing the two?
They're the same.
Are they? Well, they've got the same things, but I don't think they're the same graphs.
The green section got bigger.
The green section's a lot bigger, and all of the other sections are a little bit smaller, right? So what is the green section?
Borrowing to cover deficient.
Deficit, borrowing to cover the deficit. So doesn't it look like between 1991 and 2011, borrowing increased, the amount of money that comes from borrowing increases. And then if I compare all of the other ones, the amount of money that comes from taxes decreases. Yes? And so that's the type of answer that we're looking for that part C. Better?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else want to look at anything else from the homework or from the activities?
Could we go over number 22 on page 699, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Question number 22 says, Sean asks why the sum of the differences of the data values from the mean isn't used as a measure of variability. How would you respond to him? So let's see, let's add a page. Let's paste this question in here. So Sean asks why the sum of the differences of the data values from the mean, so we're taking the mean minus the values, why isn't that used as a measure for variability? Huh. Well, those differences we called deviations. And so he's asking about the sum of the deviations. Huh. Let's see, that some of those differences. Can anybody remember where we looked at the differences from the mean? What we were doing when we considered the differences from the mean? I'm going to thumb back through the notes. And I'm going to look at this page that was called standard deviation. Remember when we were looking at standard deviations, we had all of these students. And to find the standard deviation, we made a table. And we put their scores in one column. We put the mean in the other column. And then that third column was the deviations. It was the value minus the mean. And do you remember we said that those columns always add up to 0. And so the sum of the deviations always adds up to 0 or almost 0. Remember, we had said that it won't be exactly 0 if we round it off. But the sum of the deviations will add to 0 because there should be as much positive values as there is negative values. And the sum of all of the positive differences plus all of the negative differences should add to 0. You remember doing that when we made those standard deviation tables?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, yeah, remember the sum of the
Yeah.
deviations adds to 0. And so that, and I put that in just to make sure you guys remember that, you know, that's why I added that to the homework. Any other questions that anybody wants to look at?
Could we do number 26? It should be on 678 or a couple pages after that.
678, okay. We'll try 679 and see what happens. Oh, we gotta keep going. Question 26 asks you to discuss briefly why the television evening news might show histogram A rather than B in reporting stock market activity for the last 7 days. Is one misleading? Why or why not? So let's go through and let's copy this one into the notes. And I think the other one that they want us to compare it to is on the next page. Oh. Okay. So let's look at these and let's look at the differences. It's 7-day stock market trend, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Let's see, the first bar has a height of 10,038. The first bar has a height of 10,038. The next bar has a height of 1052, 1052. Wow. If I compare them, they both seem to be showing the same data. But do they look the same? Do you
No.
think no, why not? What's different between them? If I look at this first one, the scale goes up to the 10,090, but do you see how there's a break in the axis? As opposed to the second one, it's going all the way up from 0. And so the only thing that's different between the two is the way it's scaled. And so if I look at this first one, this difference here is $90, 90 points in the stock market, as opposed to over here, almost that same distance is 10,000. And so the difference is the scale. And you notice this first one where those differences look so high. It looks like it's very volatile all over the place. It's like taking a microscope to it, as opposed to this second one is like looking at it big picture from a distance. When I look at it through the microscope, it looks like there's significant changes. When I look at it here, it looks like those values don't change a heck of a lot, doesn't it? Which one do you think the news uses? The one that makes it look like the stock market's going crazy? Or do you think the news would use the one that makes it look like there hasn't been a lot of changes?
The first one.
The first one. And do you think that one's more realistic, or do you think that one's kind of misleading?
More realistic.
Do you? Okay, all right. I'm thinking that that is more misleading because it's showing small changes. Let's look what part B says. What was the percentage drop in the Dow Jones average from the 4th to the 5th day as shown in the preceding histogram? So 4th day, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 4th day is $10,086. The 5th day is $10,050. So that difference is 36. The percent change, do you remember when you're looking for the percent increase or decrease? Well, this would be a decrease, right? We're always comparing the difference to the original. And so that difference is 36. The original is 10,086. And I do think that, what do you guys think for this level of debt division? Should we pull out our calculators? Dividing this I get 0.003569. So to change that to a percent, it would be moving it over two places, 0.36%. So it's way less than 1%. It's 1/3 of a percent. If prices drop 1/3 of 1%, should you be concerned? I don't think so. If I compare the first diagram, do you see how it looks like it makes it look like it was only almost half of it dropped? But if I look at the second diagram, it shows me that it's very, very small drop. And so it's kind of, I put this in here because a lot of times when you see something in a newspaper, pay attention to things like scale, because a lot of times graphs can be misleading depending on how they're scaled. And so this first graph makes it look like it's a big difference. But if we go through and find what percent the difference is, it's a very small difference. And the second graph better represents it. Okay? Does it make sense? Oh, I'm not hearing anybody. Is this okay?
No, yeah, sorry. It
And
makes sense. Thank you.
And you see, especially if you're going to be like looking at, in this part of looking at graphs, I think well within the elementary school idea of statistics are things like graphs. And you see how important it is. This first, they're both the same information, but the first graph is so misleading because of the way the scale is. And so that's something important for you to look at when you look at a graph. And hopefully it's something that for you to let your students know that that's important. Okay? Any other homework questions that anybody else is wondering about?
On page 711, could we go over 14B, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
This question, I almost feel guilty assigning it because this question is a lot of work. But then those answers you carry over to 15 and 16. So I'm going to grab all three of them. Add a page. Is this an easier way to cut and paste them into the notes so that you can have the work saved for you? I apologize that I didn't figure this out earlier in the semester. It's a learning curve. So you want to convert these data sets into z-scores. In order to do that, we have to remember that the z-score is the data value minus the mean over the standard deviation. And so in order to do this, we have to find the mean. And we also have to find the standard deviation. So if I look at 14B, the reason I gave you B was because it was smaller numbers. I'm going to put my values in a table, 2, 7, 3, 6, 5, 8. And let's see, let's add those up, 10, 20, 31. Somebody check my addition, please. Our mean would be 31 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, with standard deviation, we had said that we would be using a calculator because the square root. So as I start doing that division by hand, I guess I'm going to go through and use my calculator instead. That gives me 5.16 repeating. So I'll round it using that rounding rule to 5.2. And then we have to find those deviations and square them to get our standard deviation. So 2 minus 5.2 is going to give me negative 3.2. And then when I square that, I get 10.24. 7 minus 5.2 is going to give me 1.8. And when I square that, I get 3.24. 3 minus 5.2 would be negative 2.2. And when I take that negative 2.2 and square it, I get 4.84. 6 minus 5.2 would be 0.8. Squared would be 0.64. I apologize, I said 4 and didn't write it. 5 minus 5.2 would be negative 0.2. Squared would be 0.04. 8 minus 5.2 is going to give me 2.8, and that 2.8 squared is going to give me 7.84. And now I have to add all of those numbers. 7.84 plus 0.04 plus 0.64 plus 4.84 plus 3.24 plus 10.24. I'm getting 26.84. And then do you remember the standard deviation? We're going to take that number and divide it by the number of values. And then take the square root of that. And so I get my standard deviation is about 2.1. So we have to find the mean, we have to find the standard deviation. And then we'll use the mean and the standard deviation to make them each a z-score. So the z-score for 2 would be that 2 again, the z-score is the value minus the mean over the standard deviation. So the value is 2 minus the mean is 5.2 divided by the standard deviation is 2.1. So that would be negative 3.2 divided by 2.1. Which gives me a z-score of about negative 1.53. No, 1.52, I apologize. And so you have to go through and find the z-score for each of those. I don't think finding the z-scores using that z formula is that hard. What makes this one involved is that you have to find the mean and the standard deviation first. And I apologize, but honestly, in all of the homework in the textbook, this was the only question that I saw where they asked you to go through and find those z-scores. So 14B, all right. That one's a lot of work. I did it for the 2, but you have to do it for all of those values. Then 15B asks you to add those up. And so for 15B, all you're doing is you're adding your z-scores from 14. Can we look at 16B? What's the percentile is the data value of 6 in the data set. So 15B, you add the 6 z-scores. And again, we only found one of them. 16B wants the percentile of 6. Well, let's see, our data values were 2, 7, 3, 6, 5, 8. So how many are 6 or smaller? Let's see, 2, 3.
4.
So that's 4. What's the total number of numbers?
6.
And so the percentile would be, let's see, 4, 6 reduces to 2/3. 2/3 is a percent, is 66.7%. So it's the 66.7%. That one, all right. Those of you who aren't asking questions, is this how you did them or not?
This wasn't my problem, but can I ask a question about 14B just to make clarify for the rest of the other ones that we had
Yeah.
to do? So for 7, say it'll be 2 minus
No.
5.2.
For 7, my stylus is
it'll be
freezing up
7.
on. Yeah. For
7
7,
minus 5.2 over the
2.1.
2.1. Okay. I just wanted to
And-
clarify that for
yeah.
the rest of them.
You do that for the rest of them. And
Okay.
I probably, if I were a nice person, when I assigned this, I would have given you the mean and standard deviation. But I also thought the extra practice in finding the mean and standard deviation was probably good for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That one better?
Yeah.
What made it tricky was you had to first find the mean and the standard deviation. Does anybody want to look at any other homework problems or any of the activities? No other questions? You guys all right, or do you want to go over some more? How are the activities going?
Can you go over question 3 on 697?
Sure. Well, I'm waiting for it to come in. Do you guys enjoy doing the activities? I was looking at the chapter 14 activities, and most of them are set up to do with partners, you playing games with a partner, spinning games and things like that. And that's difficult to do through Zoom classes. So I was wondering if it would hurt anybody's feelings terribly if we didn't do the chapter 14 activities. Are you guys all right if we don't have chapter 14 activities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And which of these questions are we looking at on page 697?
Part A.
2A?
3A.
3A? Compute the quartiles for the data in problem 1. Let's see. I'm gonna need a little bit more work for this. So we are looking for the quartiles, right? In order to find the quartiles, first we have to order the data. So let's see, smallest number is 14, then 15, then I'm not seeing any 16s. Are there only 2 17s? 1, 2, 3 18s. So just 1 19? Nope, 2 19s. No 20s, a 21. A 22. A 23. 24. And 2 27s. Does it look like I got them all? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
30.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Thank you. Okay, so to find the quartiles, after we put them in order, we have to find the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the median would be 19 plus 19 over 2, or 19. Now, to find the lower quartile, we need to find the middle of the bottom half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think the middle would be here. And so if I think of taking the average of 17 and 18, the lower quartile would be 17 and a half. And then to find the upper quartile, I'm going to take everything above the median and find the median of the top half. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so do you see how that would be halfway between 23 and 24, or 23.5? And so the lower quartile is 17.5, the upper quartile is 23.5. Better?
Yes, thank you.
Did you want to look at any other parts of that questions? Once we've got the quartiles, the 5-number summary and the box plot and the inner quartile range, I think are doable. Did you need a refresher, or are you good with them?
I'm good.
Okay, just one thing I want you to be careful of. When you make your box plot, when you make your number line, remember on a number line, things should be evenly spaced. So I'm going to go 10, 20, 30. So this would be 15. This would be 25. Some people have a tendency to use the spacing of the original numbers. No, on the number line, you should have everything evenly spaced. All right? That's one common careless mistake with these. Remember, number lines, it should always be evenly spaced, like a ruler. You don't have some numbers all bunched together and others spread out. It should all be the same. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any others? Not hearing any questions. I think we had kind of set up the M&M activity for everybody. How is everybody doing with the other activities? The stem and leaf diagram for the ages. And, you know, can you use that to find the mean and so forth? What's my average? We talked about the letters in the states. And I think the other one was the weather one. And when you look at the weather one, you're making a stem and leaf diagram. When you make your line graphs, you put them over here. When you make your box plots, the box plot should be over here on this side using this number line so that the box plots are rotated, pardon me, so that they're going up and down instead of sideways. And another question that people kind of don't always get, over here, they ask you to find the latitude of Wichita and San Francisco. You need to look those up. Back in ancient times, you would have had to have gotten something like an atlas out and found them. You can probably just Google up what's the latitude for each of those. And then did we discuss down here that you don't have to worry about question number 15? Did I say that already? Did anybody? If you did 15 already, you'll get extra credit for it. I think if you go through that process for two more cities, there's no need to do it a third time. Anything else that anybody else is wondering about? If not, I guess we'll call it a day. Again, that chapter 13 test will be available from the end of class time Wednesday till the end of the day Saturday. And when it comes to chapter 14, we won't be doing the activities. And the final exam will be made of questions off of all of the preceding tests. There's 7 tests, so probably 3 or 4 questions from each of the tests. And it will be optional. If you take the final exam, I'll drop your lowest test grade. If you don't take the final exam, all of the tests will count. Any questions on anything? If not, shall we call it a day?